Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Next Level Minds podcast. My name is Chris Chapman, and I am your host. If this is the first time tuning in, then this is a podcast dedicated to those who want to reach a next level in their faith, family, fitness, finances, and embrace the American freedoms that we have in this great country by really just being the best version of yourself, honoring those that came before you and inspiring those that come after you. Now, before we dive into this week's episode, I just want to reiterate my main goal, which is to impact over 1 million people. And the way in which we do that is by speaking with business owners, entrepreneurs, founders, successful people that have reached various heights in their career, their industry, their business, and really chatting with them how they have gotten from point A to point B and overcame various adversities, setbacks, and failures along the way. Because as you all know, on the journey towards success, you're going to have setbacks, adversities, and failures. So we walk through various stories of suggestions as to how these guests overcame them. We also do Motivation Monday episodes, which are solo episodes ran by yours truly, where I talk about personal development, goal setting, finances, anything under that umbrella. But today's is a guest episode with Tyler Bonds. Tyler Bonds is the entrepreneur and founder of Paradigm Pools, which is a fast, rapidly growing pool company here in Charleston, South Carolina. Tyler has a lot of experience in pool companies, roofing companies, and just has a lot of perspective when it comes to customer service, communication, getting a business off the ground, having to overcome all the intricacies and setbacks when it comes to business ownership. So I'm super excited to talk with Tyler today as well about these topics. And I'm sure we'll also dive into faith. I'm sure we'll also dive into things like alignment, clarity, focus, things that I know are definitely important to Tyler. So if you want to know more about owning a business, running a business, operating a business, and you want to know more about how faith, alignment, clarity, focus fall into those things, then this episode is 100% for you. Let's go ahead and dive in to hear what Tyler has to say. Tyler, thanks so much for hopping on the show.
Absolutely, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Speaking with another Charleston local, it's been a while since I've had a fellow Charlestonian on the podcast, so I'm pumped.
Yeah, absolutely. We consider this home already, even though we haven't been there for this long. So I'll gladly take that title.
Dude, you can definitely take the title. We're like 10 minutes from each other anyway.
Yeah.
So if you yell really loud, I may be able to hear you since we're virtually recorded. But,
certainly.
So, dude, let's start with this. Let's start with doing the work when you don't feel like it. I think before we started recording, you had a story you were lightly starting to share, and I was like, oh, we got to hit this record button before you keep going here. So,
yeah, absolutely. This time, it's just one of those things. I feel like the main topic that's on my mind coming into this, and watching your other content, you have to do a lot of things that you don't quite feel like doing. And this is one of those things. Like this time yesterday, I was on a job site. I showed you the picture before we started, but we can spare the audience. But I got just stung right here by a yellow jacket, and my lip, it's bad. Like you can still see it right here, and I'm flushed, but spent some time in the urgent clinic yesterday with an allergic reaction off of that. And I was like, I'm going to have to cancel this podcast. And it kind of came back. I can at least talk mostly plain, as plain as I can normally talk, which is somewhat coherent. So I was like, let's roll it. Sometimes we do it, even if it's not ideal. And here we are.
Yeah, man, that's wild. And I think when you continue to just invest back into yourself by doing it when you don't feel like doing it, I feel like that just builds a whole new level of confidence.
It does. Yeah, certainly. Because things are just not going to be ideal. Like that's one of my big things. If I can operate in chaos a little bit, now, that doesn't give you like a license to just act crazy and just make you need an intuition about it. But if you can only operate in perfect circumstance, like I'm always drawing these analogies with sports. Good quarterbacks, like when you're ahead, like most quarterbacks are fine, right? But when things aren't ideal, when you got a blitz coming off the edge or whatever your sport is, if you learn how to operate in chaos, like those are the ones that are special. Those are the players that are special. Those are the business owners that are special. So things don't go to plan. How can we make adjustments on the fly? And how can we do it fast? And again, not a license to like be reckless with it, I guess. But how can you do it fast? How can you make the right call fast and learn to make the right call faster amidst chaos?
Yeah, and what advice would you have to do that? Because I feel like a lot of times for me, when I have a chaotic situation, sometimes I tend to overthink. I'm like, oh, I could do this, this, this. And then I'm like, I got to decide. And I'm like, how do you, like, what's your framework to being like, just go?
I think it's like a little cliche to say you're better off to make, maybe slightly the wrong call, but make it faster. If it's the wrong call, you have chance to adjust and make another and make another. And the other person, your competitor, is still sitting there trying to make the first call. That feels a little cliche. I think something that maybe has more real world value would be learn to adjust on the fly. Learn to be willing to develop your intuition. Like most people, you might not be born with the best intuition. You're going to develop this as you go. Like you shouldn't get discouraged when you make those wrong calls. Again, be quick, make corrections, but you learn from it. You start learning to trust your gut a little more.
Yeah. And it's just that repetition of doing it over and over again. And then you're like, all right, I'm somebody who makes quick decisions is what it sounds like.
Certainly.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Obviously, in business, you have to be able to think quickly on your feet. I'm sure you get that every single day in what you're doing. But I want to touch on your background a little bit. How did your entrepreneurial journey begin?
Absolutely. That's good. I had a real job for one day. So that was my start. And then I figured out I'm unemployable and I would rather just build things. So from that point, we have a family business. I'm a third generation stonemason. My brother is in this business. My father, my grandfather are all in this business. So my start was with my grandfather and my father and my brother. And that was for a few years. And that's when we really wanted to branch off, kind of do our own thing. And that was the first taste of let's move to a new state and let's go do this on our own. And I'll never be able to explain like what a blessing, like going into an actual partnership with my grandfather out of high school. He said, Tyler, we'll go 50-50. We'll go build this new business because he had actually gotten out of the business prior to me graduating. We'll go rebuild this. We'll go 50-50. We'll get your feet wet. Anybody can do the work, but not everybody can do the business part. You got to learn the business part. And, focusing on that for a few years to then take the branch and say, we're going to go from Arkansas, which is where I was born and raised, and we're going to move to Nashville, Tennessee and do it on our own rather than being part of a family business. That's where I got my start.
Yeah. And you actually learned like the intricacies of everything during that time, I feel like, rather than just jumping into it.
Absolutely. And it's, it's little stuff. It's bidding projects, estimating. And I'm not talking about a software for everything. I'm talking about old school. I'm talking about doing your taxes on a ledger rather than QuickBooks. I'm talking about estimating on a notepad, right? Northern Arkansas, 2014, stonemasonry business. It was not fancy, but it allowed me to learn those little things, the little parts of business, how to talk to people, how to get in the game.
Yeah. What's your, I guess, remarks, if you will, about like traditional business education, let's call it like books, podcasts, but also like all the MBA stuff. And then just like the experience, like you think there's a good blend between like, you should read the books, but you should also like, what's kind of that happy medium,
I think it's so interesting that sometimes people, there's a blend. There's not a right or wrong, right? Mm-hmm. It's more about the person, which side of that you're on, getting your education and getting your feet wet. It's more about like the person. I see people come in with like no construction experience, but maybe they have like the book smarts and the education and they'll do better than the guys that know everything about construction. So I think it's more about like your attitude and who you are, no matter which side of that you're on.
Yeah. I also feel like a lot of people will get into business because they're like, oh, I'm good at this trade. Like an attorney who's a great lawyer is like, I'm gonna start the own firm. And then it's like, well, they don't have like the business acumen to maybe run all the intricacies of that. Or, you see that happen all the time too in like construction. I'm gonna start my own, GC firm. It's like, well, you've been a great GC, but like you don't have the business, right? So I love like your approach because you kind of were able to like shadow your grandfather at that time who's been there, done that, been successful in that. but also like learn the business and the trade kind of aspect at the same time, which is really cool.
Certainly. Yeah, it made a big difference for me, and it was needed. It was needed. I can remember it gave me ability to catapult into some bigger projects, some like high six and seven figure construction projects. And having my grandfather to kind of help me through that, I think I developed this sense of there's no job that's too big, and going the other route. Maybe if I would have, and we're just talking about probably about a 3-year period. So the time I'm 18, and then by the time I'm 21, I'm out on my own. But those 3 years, that was my college education in my eyes.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. You had that one company, and didn't you shift to another industry?
We did.
After that? Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. So as we made that move from Northern Arkansas to Nashville, Tennessee, I'd spent my whole years growing up and first few years of my career being a stonemason. So like a traditional stonemason, fireplaces and like real stone, flagstone patios, putting stone on the outside of large houses that we would work on for long, extended periods of time. I was like, I really want to expand. The thing that I noticed is that a lot of the general contractors, they got the good projects, they got the big ones. So like, I really want to go more of that like GC general contractor route. That ultimately led me to outdoor living. When I started advertising those things, it started, instead of just maybe a stone mailbox or stone on the house or a patio, it turned into a pergola, a pavilion, an outdoor kitchen. And those things kept leading ultimately to swimming pools, which is what we do now.
That's awesome. And so it wasn't like a huge shift from industry where you had to like relearn it. Did it kind of just like build on top of it, or what was that like?
To me, it's all the same,
Okay.
and I'm sure we'll get into it. The different businesses, I'll even throw in roofing because we are part of a roofing company. You're dealing with people. You're doing a service at their home. They're hiring you, and you're dealing with materials. So on roofing, you're dealing with underlayment and shingles or tile or whatever it is. On pools, there's a little more for sure. We have plumbing and electrical and concrete and hardscape and landscape, but it's the same thing, man. It's materials. They're hiring you to do a job. You're putting your margin on there. They're paying you to make what they need to make happen. It feels all the same to me, despite the differences between the industries.
For sure. And you mentioned you were 21, right, when you stepped out on your own?
Yes.
Dude, how did you deal with like, you're so young, why am I going to trust you, right?
Yeah, the first thing was the beard, and I've had it ever since because like that's a real. I can remember the largest project to date, probably when I was like 20. I can remember we were at the site visit. My grandpa really placed a lot of trust in me. I did a lot of the talking and the estimating, and I can remember they actually there was a general contractor, some different. Without getting too specific, there's different people involved. And that was some of their feedback is we really didn't like how Tyler was kind of leading the conversation. Like we would really like someone with a little more experience. And I can remember just feeling floored. Like we're going to miss this massive opportunity because of my age. And to me, the easy thing was the beard. I need to look older, right? There's more to it than that. And I get a little more of that. I get that experience now being, 11 years in, why you would want that. Definitely a major challenge for me. Something we had to overcome. And what I learned was there's different kinds of sales and persuasive sales is awesome, but informative sales, what is the toolbox that I'm carrying to these job sites? If someone looks at me and says, you're too young, like what are the tools that I'm going to use to argue against that or diffuse that situation? For me, it was informative sales more than persuasive. I'm going to be able to answer every question they have. Every question they have, every kind of material, what things cost, how we're going to do it. I'm going to over-educate myself so that I can answer questions that other people can't. Because if I can do that, if I can just be an open book, answer all their questions, then age isn't going to be as much of a factor.
Yeah, and I feel like people that have been in the game like 15, 20 years, they're kind of like, oh, I already know everything. I don't need to do that. But like business and industry, no matter what industry you're in, it changes so quickly. And I feel like you kind of have that upper edge by like, just becoming a master at whatever industry you're in. And it's like, people ask you questions, you're like, dang, like Tyler, at this point it's only 22, 23, blah, blah. But like, damn, he knows his stuff far better than this other guy who I've been also asking some questions to,
Certainly, because and saying it with confidence, being confident, and it's not just a bluff. It's actually learning it where you can provide that. Because you bluff your way into sales, and I'm sure everybody has done that. But then you're there, and a lot of times early in my career, you're driving on the way to the job site and you're like, okay, I sold it. Now, how do I build it? How do I make this happen? You do have to back it up in this business and in every business. So the education isn't just for you to put on a show. It's for you to actually be able to lean in and learn and be the best option that they have. And at the end of the day, you're dealing with people. It's 10% about the work and 90% about you taking care of your client and being there for them and producing a good product.
Where did you learn, I guess, the people side, customer service side of the business?
I would say that the more home projects, I'm still on this journey, the more projects we do in our home, it's like every time we do one, we just had a fence installed like last week. Every time we do one, I'm like, I get a little more. Any complaint I've had in the past, I understand it a little more now. Yeah. Every time we do one, I understand that people, they want over communicated with. I would say that's like the number one takeaway to answer your question. And when we came into this market here in Charleston, I actually put some Facebook posts on groups. Anybody that's built a pool, I want to talk to you. I would like to interview you, ask some questions. And I would say, I can't remember if it was like 10 or 15 people. It wasn't a huge sample size, but most of them, almost all of them exclusively outside of like a couple, that was it. We just don't. We're not getting when people are coming, when people are going, what's happening next, how long it's going to take. We're not being talked to. We're not being called every day. And it was like, wow. So like communication, like your complaints really, all these companies are out there, some better than others when it comes to quality work, but that's not really the measuring stick. The measuring stick was more of that experience that they have during the project.
That's such a good point. Cause like little home projects I've done, 80% of these folks are not communicating. They're showing up 3 hours late. You're like, what's going on? Right. But like the little, percentages outside of those that actually have like over delivered, it's like I'm remembering those people because like they hit me up, they were there 10 minutes early, they were calling me along all the projects, and to me it's not really that hard to do. I mean, again, I don't own a service company, but it's like, okay, just stay organized with it and like just follow through with it.
Yeah, and not that you need it, but when you do those things well, the other things, like if someone's in a business where they're having like a lot of little nitpicky complaints and things, it's probably mostly coming back to your customer service and your process. That's like one metric that we use when we're helping other contractors is like, how long did that project take? If it took 40% less time, if you were more organized and it went way faster, how many of the problems would have been eliminated? It's usually most of them.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any, tips out there to stay organized when you obviously have like multiple customers that you're doing with your pools and all that?
Yeah, certainly. It's someone who has had probably somewhere between 20 and 30 projects running at a time, probably in the peak. I would say that, well, number one is project managers. You're never going to be able to replace, when you get into these bigger tiers of company, more sets of hands and bringing in the right people. But just speed overall, the planning before the project. So one change that we made is, how can we organize before it starts? Like, how can we sit down and really think through on these projects? What is the actual order and amount of time that's going to take? And how can we list out every little thing? You wouldn't believe how many people miss that of getting to the site and their materials aren't there, or a subcontractor's not ready, or we're short-staffed on employees. How do we sit down first and go, let's envision this project over the course of, let's say, 8 weeks to 12 weeks for a pool. Week 1 all the way through week 12. What do we need on site each week? Who do we need to have prepared? How can we sit down and just take 30 minutes to plan the whole project out ahead of time? Because if we're doing that, we really shouldn't be allowed to start a project until we've done that. Now, it happens, especially in construction and other industries, but you shouldn't be able to. You should have to sit down and really plan those things and do some of the work up front on that stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of like, go ahead and just put in the work on the front end so that you can make the back end of the project significantly easier, right?
Yeah, most people are doing the right things. They're just doing it way too late.
And what were some lower moments you've had in your journey? Because obviously you've had multiple companies in your hand and different things. You've moved around a lot, Nashville, Arkansas, Charleston, Arizona at one point too, right?
Yeah. Naples, Florida, Scottsdale, Arizona. And I'll try to start bringing that picture together, because when we got into Nashville, we got into swimming pools. That was the first company that we exited. Then we went to Florida. Then we went to Arizona. Arizona is where we got into the roofing business. We did exit that company as well, but we're still a minority owner. So it was a majority exit. but we're still somewhat on a lot level involved with that company. And, now here we are in Charleston on swimming pools. And when it comes to the adversities that you're asking about, from little ones to big ones, I view the little ones like the job site issues. And that could be small stuff all the way to the biggest one, probably being like a $40,000 loss. Where I had a subcontractor just completely mess something up. We had to pull it out and redo it on our dime to the tune of about $40,000. That's like job site problems. Those are going to happen. The bigger your business gets, you're going to have problems, and your ability to like remedy that and honestly eat it and take care of it. And again, speed is the key in that situation. You know what you should do. And I always say you just need to be 30 seconds faster, but it's the 30 seconds before the procrastination sets in. Because if you wait 30 seconds, it's going to turn into 2 weeks and 3 weeks and 4 weeks. So that's what I always say is if you're just 30 seconds faster and you beat the procrastination, you're going to be in good shape. Those are what I call minor issues, all the way to like bigger issues, being involved in lawsuits, in situations like that, in high stress situations, that last longer periods of time, a year or two. Those are the things that would probably like the worst time, those low points where you're really reconsidering everything that we've had to go through without getting too specific. One of them lasting all the way up to like 2 years. And I just remember that 2 years is just like, that's there's no amount of job site issues or like lost money on a job site that can compare to having what I call an actual major issue like that, something that really kind of stops life for a longer period of time.
Yeah. How did you just keep going through that and like giving your 100% all and all that? Because I imagine you still had jobs to do, right? It's not like they just all stopped, right?
Yeah, we did. And you know what? I would say we made some wrong decisions during that time, just as many as we did right. We definitely kept going. And as you keep going through that, you kind of figure out the journey is the fun part. There's some not so fun stuff in there like that, but it's not really like the destination that you're after. You're going to have these highs and lows. And I tie it back into the chaos that we opened with. If you can find out how to make it during those chaotic times, you're going to be just fine because they don't last. You do get through them. Things do turn over. And I would consider ourselves a lot more fortunate than a lot of people. There's people that have to go through worse, that have worse outcomes than what we've come. Most of our bad outcomes have been, financially, like losing money in a lawsuit or to a project. To me, that's stuff we can live with. Do we have our health? Do we have our business? Do we have our family? Like those are the things that I actually feel really fortunate about at the end of the day, because we live to see another day. We keep moving on and we learn from those mistakes. Each one of those mistakes is another college education in my eyes.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Cause it's like, then if you experience a similar situation, it's like, oh wait, I've already seen this. I've already gone through this. Here's what to do. Here's what not to do. Right. But if you don't have the setbacks, the adversities along the way, like you're not going to have that, capacity to be like, oh, I've experienced this before.
Yeah, and transparency here, I'm reading off. I have my notes pulled up. There's a specific Bible verse. I know faith is a part of what you do. It's a huge part for us. And it's Genesis 50:20. It's, but as for you, you thought evil against me, but God meant it into good, to bring it to pass as it is this day to save much people alive. And the reason I bring that verse up, mainly the middle part, you thought evil against me, but God meant it into good. Those situations, when you go through those hard times, they make you better. They make you into the person that can go into that next phase. So your question was, how do you keep going and digging for that time? If you can develop that mindset of what is this meant to teach me?
Yep.
What am I supposed to learn from this situation that's going to help me later? That's going to mold me into the person who goes into that next chapter. It's really hard to do when you're in those lows, but the more of them you go through, you start understanding that they're meant to teach you things.
Yeah. And I think leaning on your faith and God and, his overall bigger plan for you throughout that as well of like, all right, like I'm going through this, but like what plan is this a part of? Like help me to get through it. And then I don't know about you, but like I've looked back at tough situations and I'm like, I see why that happened because now I'm here in this situation, which is significantly better than what was happening before that problem came up.
Certainly. Yeah, that's exactly hit the nail right on the head what I mean. Like those situations might just make you into the person who can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. Like, I'm not sure that you can skirt through without these, terrible lows and get to your ultimate self, the person that you want to be. Sometimes it takes that stuff.
Yeah. How do you, let me ask you this, like, how do you, I guess I've heard you talk about whether it's on Instagram and I think a little bit on the phone call as well. Like you talked about alignment, clarity, and focus, I believe. So like, how do you kind of have those three things drive what you're doing?
Yeah. So have you ever heard focus? Like I want to start with focus, even though it's the last one you say,
Yep.
because of what it means to me. Have you ever heard they used to say the average millionaire has 7 businesses or 12 businesses? Man, I'm like completely convinced. I've been spread very thin across a lot of different businesses, and I've been very focused, which is what I am today. And focus for us, like all of our attention, is the vehicle important that you're focused on? Sure. Is it arguably more important to be focused on whatever that vehicle is long term? Certainly. At least for us, I can be so focused, and this comes up in our business meetings. I said it recently in a roofing meeting. We could expand here and open this location and buy this company and do this. But what is our capacity where we are today? If we were to focus on what's in front of us, what is our capacity? 10 times bigger than we are? 20 times bigger? Why would we not focus on that?
Yep.
Like the distraction. So that's what focus means to me. Clarity is having clarity about what that focus should be on. And alignment is everybody on the team being aligned on the clarity of the focus, right? So those three work together.
How do you build that, I guess, within the company? Because especially with different personalities, different people, I'm sure everybody wants to go different directions. Yeah. How do you kind of get everybody to row the boat the same way, you know?
I think you bring A talent in with that message of like, we don't want B and C and D talent. We want A talent. What do I mean by that? There's some sort of realistic when you're hiring someone. Here's what the position pays. Sure, I'm not saying that you post an ad, we pay double what everybody else does. But how do I get those people anyways? How do I say, if you will come help me as an A player, we could totally all be out doing our own thing. How do I get people that are bought in and show you, if we do this together, we'll go 10 times further. Here's what we can do to your earning potential. You can do well. It's because I'm aware that people leave companies when they tap out on their potential, when they've reached their ceiling. If we don't have a ceiling, there's still room for growth. They will stay. If I can keep growing and growing and growing with them and helping them hit their goals. In order for that to happen, their goals must fit within my goals. If I have $1 million goal and my employee has $1 million goal, they're not going to be there long. If we have $100 million goal as a company and I've got 10 employees that have $1 million goals, they can fulfill those if we fulfill ours, right? So looking for those people, and it sounds really good and sexy when you say it like that, you're going to turn a lot of people over, and we do. You know, like not everybody's going to align with that. And you are going to turn people over, and you are going to have people who don't fit that bill. But it's being willing to continue doing that, growing and searching out real good raw talent, being willing to pay for it.
Yeah, and it's like allowing them to kind of build their goals within your goal, essentially, is what it sounded like, right? With the $100 million example?
Certainly.
Yeah. Yeah. But like, to your point, like you have to be willing to pay for it, which I imagine, you know, talent ain't cheap, especially in the construction world. So
yeah, certainly not. You know, and again, with that vision and that upside, you might not even have to pay. Let's say there's other people paying a position $70,000 and you're hired at 50 or 60. But yours comes with this upside of build something special, build this department out, have an upside on commissions, have a culture you like to go to work to, a company with a mission and a vision. You can sometimes get that talent. Doesn't mean that you just have to go, you know, out pay for it. But again, if you're trying to hire, everybody's trying to get like real wide at the bottom, like lots of laborers and lower dollar hours, you know, per hour positions. And I'm like, why not bring in like a head of operations, someone who's scaled a company before that can help you scale the top end of the company and sales? Because if you can do that, you scale marketing and you can scale sales and bring talent to the table, you can fill those laborers and everybody in underneath.
Yeah. Yeah. And how have you built out like the clarity component with the business side of here's where I want to take it in, you know, 1 year, 5 year, 10 year? Because I feel like a lot of people get stuck there, not just in business, but in their life. And I don't know if you saw my Instagram story yesterday, but I was talking about how, probably not because you got stung by a bunch of yellow jackets, but I was talking about how people, you can ask them like, hey, like what TV shows are you watching, where vacations, and they can answer it so quickly. But then if you ask like, okay, where do you want to be in 3 years? Like most people have no idea, but they can tell you what TV show they want to watch, right? And it's kind of like mind blowing to me that people don't have that clarity. So like, how do you kind of get that in your life, in your business?
I think you introduce it to everyone, like with your culture. Like there's a certain, like, don't want anybody dragging into work not happy to be there. And I've told a number of people that when we've got to situations where maybe I felt like they weren't bought in or maybe wanting to leave, is we want you to want to be here. To want to be here, it requires that clarity. And I've got to have clarity for employees and even subcontractors and everybody to have clarity. If I don't, it starts with you, right? It starts with painting the vision of where that company's going. So I think the better job you can do of reflecting on that clarity, taking time to pray and think about that and paint out a vision, it'll help you pass that throughout the company. It's not usually there's these employees who are not bought into the culture, so it's affecting you. It's going to trickle down from you to them. And if you do that and you do it well, I would even go out on a limb and say that the people who aren't bought in will work theirself out. If you're implementing the right culture and vision and clarity, the people who don't need to be there, they will work themselves out if you're doing that.
Yeah, and then you're left with all of the people that are like bought into the culture, the vision, the mission, and like that's how you have that thriving company is what it sounds like.
Certainly, by continuing to bring people in, put those right things in place, the ones who aren't meant to be will work their way out, and that gives room for the ones who are to rise to the top.
Yeah. And like sounds like y'all have a great culture. Like I've never met any of your employees, right? But like I can tell from what you're talking about and your vision, it sounds like y'all have a great culture. It sounds like you've been able to build some trust in the Charleston market already, especially with those Facebook groups. How did you I guess build this trust? Just because like when you use the word like contractor, so many people that aren't in that space just have this vision of like showing up late, leaving trash in your yard, not completing the job. It's just that unfortunate, like unconscious bias just because people have gotten screwed over so many times by contractors. So it's like, how did you build that quick trust of like, I'm not one of those people, you know?
I think that we joke around sometimes and we're like, it's fairly simple. Don't show up ripping cigarettes and unprofessional. And that's like the joke. In all the way to the way we present estimates and talk to people, the time that we invest in them, the way our vehicle looks. There's a lot of different ways. The truth is, it's the long game. We're still going to have people who don't trust contractors. There are bad, especially in the pool business. There are people out there that do not good things. There are people who go to business and take people's money, and it's unfortunate because it does create that hesitance from our clients. Yep. I use those. I talk about them. When we get to the end of a site visit, I'm aware of the companies around here who don't go right, that haven't done right or went out of business or whatever. I want you to know that when you do business with Paradigm Pools, we're not commingling funds. We're using your deposit to fund your project. That's the reason we have the contract we have, the terms we have, the deposit amount we have. And we're not going to use your funds to fund theirs, and we're not going to use theirs to fund yours. So the rules are the rules without sounding completely unreasonable. I don't know how else to say it. Like, we do business a certain way. We understand what's out there in these unprofessional people. We want you to know why we're different. We're not going to hide it and pretend like it doesn't exist. We know what's out there. We know you're concerned about it. Here's why we're different. Transparency.
Yeah. Yeah. And just like hitting it right there of like, we're different. I know you're probably thinking this. We're not those people. And yeah, like the whole like robbing Peter to pay Paul, like I feel like that happens all the time, not just with pools, but with so many different things, right? And it's like, no, like we don't do that. Your deposit, your price, it's your price kind of thing. So that's cool. And I liked what you did with the Facebook group, by the way. I think that's a lesson for a lot of like business owners, if you're trying to get your business off the ground, of like, you know, get some sampling done of ideal customers. What do they want? What do they not like? Like, is that kind of your suggestion as well? Because it sounds like you did that.
Why would you build out a product and then launch it in the market if you didn't know it was good? Like, give me one good reason you can't build a product and go talk to people. I'm just going to use an example. If you're going to build a software for a specific industry, why would you not go to that industry and sit down with 50 or 100 or 500 people? What is this product worth to you? How would this change your business? Let's test it out. Let's implement it. That's kind of the thing. There were takeaways, from our first pool company of things. Here's clearly what I want to do better. I want to be faster. I want to give a better customer experience, but I need to go into this new market And I need to make sure that that's what people are wanting here. That was the idea behind Facebook. And I had a pretty good idea because, as you know, we've been plugged in. And in that 3-year gap between the old pool company and the new company, I spent most of my time consulting and working with hundreds of contractors, mainly around the U.S., a few globally, in some different countries. And I got to see it from their perspective, the problems they have from the contractor perspective. And then I've been in the different businesses to see it, specifically with the homeowners. And there were things I already knew I wanted to change. But what I found interesting is when we come out here, it was what we thought it was. It was the communication and the professionalism and the transparency and those things. So it just validated that need was here for us. And it was an easy decision to go ahead and put Paradigm Pools here in the Charleston market.
Yeah. And there's so many easy ways to get that feedback now with online. Like there's Instagram, there's Facebook groups, there's Reddit sub communities. Like, you don't have to, although like in person's awesome. I love in person, but like you don't have to go like meet with 500 people in person,
Yeah.
So
yeah, exactly.
Awesome, well, what else you got planned? I know you dropped a lot of good value here, especially from that business perspective and, getting the focus, alignment, and clarity. I know you started with focus there, but I guess what else do you have planned for the rest of the year that you just wanted to plug to the listeners?
Man, we're so focused on building Paradigm Pools out here. We have a big vision. We want to be a big player in this market. And again, even outside of the market, there's some plans, but we're so focused on being the go-to pool company here. We have a lot of work to do. We realize we're the new guys on the block with 11, 12 Google reviews, and there's some really good pool companies here. We talked a little bit about maybe pool companies that are out there that are not so good. Well, guess what? There's a bunch of them here that are really, really good that we quote against and build pools and that do business the right way. And that makes it enjoyable to be in this market. Those are the guys we want to be competing against. And we want to be the go-to in Charleston, but we have to earn that trust. Are there people who go ahead and take a chance on us, our first, and now going into kind of our second calendar year here? Yeah, there are people who have taken the chance, and our reviews speak for themselves. But we're going to continue to build that trust. We're going to continue to put showcase projects on the board and build Paradigm Pools out and just be focused on becoming the best and the best experience, more importantly, not only the best pool, but the best experience for the customer here in the Charleston and surrounding markets down to Hilton Head. So that's where our focus is. And I actually put like a little outro, like a little message together I'd love to share with you. And again, transparency, I'm going to read it. I have it pulled up on my screen here. It's not memorized, but I prepared this for this podcast. This is where my head has been at lately on what I'm focused on. I'd love to share it with you.
Yeah, man, go ahead.
So at this stage of life, I'm more focused on becoming a man of God, a man of faith, and not just a businessman, but a tradesman or businessman of God. And we've talked about adversity. And what I'm focused on is instead of asking why me when these things happen, asking what is God trying to teach me? What am I supposed to learn from this situation, which I know we already touched on. And most people, they sit around and they wait for the moment that they magically become who they want to be. One day I'll get right with God. I'll become who I want to be. But the truth is that all you have to do is take the first step. All you have to do is make the decision. This is who I want to be. And every day when you wake up, the dozens or hundreds or thousands of decisions you make each day, you ask yourself, what would that person do? Whether if you're picturing however many years down the road, what are the decisions that person would make? When you start living intentional and making those decisions, you've immediately become that person. There isn't a magical transformation where a rainbow comes down and it's a pot of gold and then you're that person. It's the minute that you choose to and you start making the decision that that person would make. So that's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on being intentional in my decisions. Every single decision, every conversation, every small choice, I'll ask, what would the person I'm becoming do? And that is the shift. That is the paradigm shift, which is why it's Paradigm Pools that it requires to become who you want to be. And you stop worrying about when it's going to happen and you start preparing to be the person who can carry what you're asking for. Because if you don't endure, you're not going to get to the good stuff. But if you do endure and do these things, you'll become someone who doesn't just build companies, but builds legacies and makes a difference in your life and other people's lives. And that's kind of the motto of my year and moving forward with Paradigm Pools.
Dude, I love that. I'm so glad you shared that because I I mean, especially the God component, right? Like that comes first. That's going to trickle down to everything else in your life, and just having that hope in, the one who created you, who has plans for you. And I also think what you mentioned as well about like stepping into that person, like you can do it today by what you just said. Like, what is this person? How do they act? How do they behave? How do they talk? And you can like become that person. And next thing you know, like you have that life that you've been dreaming for, right? And like I think about that all the time with like my habits, routines, behaviors. And a lot of people ask me, because if you follow me on Instagram, I know a lot of people on the podcast do as well. Like I'm very locked in with my routine, right? Going to the gym, reading, spending time in the Bible, eating healthy, all this stuff, looking at my finances. And the reason being is because I know if I do those things long enough, I've talked to enough successful people that like the right habits, the right amount of time is going to equal the results, right? It may not happen today, next month, next year, but 10 years down the road, it's like, Tyler, how'd you do this? Chris, how'd you do this? Well, go back and listen to the last 4 minutes. And that's kind of the blueprint right there.
I couldn't agree more. Like I'm a pool builder. I'm a construction guy. I'm going to keep building pools and focusing on those things that I just shared with you, and just being the best pool builder and just person that I can be in general, in business and in our life. I know that exactly what you said is true. If I do that for long enough, my goals will fit into that big picture.
Yeah, dude. Well, I think that's a great ender. I think if people are driving right now, they just hit like 95 miles per hour on 17 because they're so amped up. So I'm glad you shared all that. Is there anything else you wanted to share before we jump?
Man, that's it. That's the shift. That's the paradigm shift. I appreciate you having me so much. It's been great.
Cool. And where's the best place to connect with, I guess, with yourself or Paradigm?
Yeah, certainly. I'm on Instagram at I'm Tyler Bonds. So I am Tyler, Tyler Bonds, Bonds. That's where I post most of my stuff. On Facebook too, and you can look Paradigm Pools up, but mainly Instagram.
Dude, well, hopefully this time next year you got like 100 Google reviews, all 5-star.
Certainly. We're definitely working on it.
So awesome, brother. Appreciate you being on.
Thank you.
Well, that's it, everyone. Thanks again for taking the time to tune into this week's episode of Next Level Minds. Be sure to connect with Tyler. Be sure to check out Paradigm Pools. If you need a pool in the Charleston, South Carolina area, definitely hit him up. He's got some fantastic Google reviews. Other than that, I hope everybody has a fantastic week ahead.